All right, all right. Welcome back, everyone, to another office hours session. It is, as I'm recording this, Thursday, October 5th. One day left. One day left. All right, so we'll keep it going here. And so basically, format of today is open. This is just office hours. I actually have Jeff joining me today. Bring him on a little bit, and we'll do our thing. And so our goal here is just to chill out with you. And if you have any questions, you can either put them into the chat or we'll hope for the best. Yep, I'll have that up on the screen here for me, or we'll just bring up things on the chat. So feel free to say hi, or if you have any questions or anything like that going on. Great. So you know what? Let's just do this. Let's bring Jeff on here. What's up, man?
Not much. You're brave enough to bring me back on. I love it. It's been a while since we've done something like this, so I'm really excited.
It really has been a while. And so for those of you that are not familiar, the numbers would indicate that might be true, that we did a live series of videos almost every week during the pandemic, where we brought either ourselves, or most of them we brought a guest on, and we called it Thrivecast. And so that is something we are looking at kind of reformulating and redoing. We've already recorded a couple videos that are in that vein of having various experts and people from the field coming in and doing that. And we want to do more of that. And one of the things that I'll be talking about later today is we want to do more of that in an exclusive setting, where we have some behind the scenes kind of stuff, some opportunities for you to be interacting with these folks as well as us, and more than just hey, I'm chatting with them on a live broadcast kind of a thing. And so we wanted to kind of bring some enhancement to that, and that's one of the things we're working on and be launching today. You'll see that little QR code up there and a link. That is something where if you want to be part of that, that is one aspect of many of the things we're looking at. And so we're looking at some people to join us, be our founding members that will be working with us to determine the full course of the way it all goes. So we are opening that up as of this week. The founding membership bundle that we have is something that will, here, let's, since I just figured out how to do this nice little graphic thing, we'll put that up here. So you can grab that today and grab it before tomorrow, grab it before Friday. This deal will expire as far as the discount goes. I may still leave the opportunity to become a founding member up for folks, but as far as the bundle and this kind of offer, this is going away. So this is something where you have to take action now. Don't wait. And if you need more material, need more about this, you can go to the website, or just come chat with me and say, what are you talking about, DJ? And I can give you more clarification on that as we go along today. But that's what we have going on right about now. So
pretty much what you say to me a lot of times is, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about, Jeff? What are you doing? What the haps?
So what's in that bundle, DJ? What is in that bundle? Give
us a bundle? I've been talking about it so much, I'm like fatigued with it. But yeah, so basically, to describe it to people, just to start off the time today, because there's no live viewers, so we might as well just talk about it. No questions, because there's nobody live with us, so we can just do whatever we want. It's a free day. So the bundle itself is a combination of things where we said, okay, what my thinking was, what can I do to equip people deeply in information technology? What can I do to say, okay, I know all these things about technology, yes, but what kind of things can I teach that are the things I've learned along the way, kind of those portable skills? And so really what the bundle is, more of those kind of skill sets that nobody else is teaching. And so, and the difficulty here, and this is just the honest truth, is that most people don't know they need this stuff. They don't realize that, yeah, the key to success has nothing to do with your knowledge of the technology. Jeff, how many technologies have you had to learn in the last 20 years?
Oh, goodness gracious. Way too many, and still going.
And still
That's the
going.
whole thing. It never ends.
It
In
does
this
not.
field that we are in, it's not a stable field like a financial or, fields like that,
Right.
which, we are in. Tech is a world of rapid change.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're constantly having to learn.
And that's the thing too, is that what I'm finding is that a lot of systems education, and Jeff, you know this firsthand, is that a lot of that it's very frustrating for people that are, providing the software or whatever, because they're having to change it so frequently that the education part of it can't keep up anyway. And so it becomes one of those things where it's just like, well, it has to accelerate faster than the official material can even evolve.
Absolutely. And as we move more into, and this is especially true because we're moving more into cloud services, SaaS, that type of thing, is that those things are being iterated. Let's be honest. I mean, it's at least a daily basis. We may not see those changes, but they really are being updated rapidly.
Yeah.
And so, to keep up is I don't want to say it's difficult, but you have to put the time and effort into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't have the, well, and it's the time and effort, but also it's learning how to learn. It's funny. The one thing I took away from a psychology class that I had back in the day, even though psychology was my major, it was a class of, which one was that? Experimental psychology, I think maybe. But what he tried to drill into us was like, look, I could have you just recite a bunch of stuff for the exam, and all the board would be happy, all that kind of stuff, but what I want you to do is learn how to learn. And so what I'm going to be judging for this course is how well you can adapt, how well you can learn. And it fit into that psychology realm where it was more of the scientific part of things, like adapt, learn new things, that sort of thing, have a process to learn. And that's what we're talking about, is like we have, those of us that have figured out how to be successful long-term in information technology have basically adapted ourselves to be adaptable, I guess you could say. But there's also a certain group of methods that we've learned that have transmuted. On Monday, I talked about how the lessons that I learned in deploying Exchange from whatever system it was, I think Lotus Notes or whatever it was, migrating all those mailboxes one by one and how to systematize that. The lessons that I learned about, the process, but it was the behind the scenes stuff. It was like, whoa, if I just do this change all at once, people will start yelling at me because they can't access things, and they don't want to be interrupted. They want to be working. So little things, it's subtle, and the things that people don't think about, but that's what we want to do in this whole grouping of membership and materials, is equip you with the things that might blindside you. So we're giving you these things in advance so you can accelerate your career growth. That's really what this is all about.
And I would say as well is that, it's also teaching, if you are blindsided, how do you deal with that? How do you overcome those situations? Because those situations will always come up at some point in everybody's career. These things come up, whether it's life, whether it's career, and there's you can panic and make rash decisions that could hurt long time, or you've got the foundation to work through, make the decisions that need to be made, and make them in the best possible way.
Yeah. And I think a big piece of this too is going to be what we're founding here is not just a consumable. It's more of a community. And when we say community, I need to clarify this, because in the technology world, for some reason, community means like we have this technology and we just get together and we We don't even get together. We just have a Slack channel, and it's just, people pop up things every now and then, and some people respond, and other people just learn.
And there's nothing wrong with those communities. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we kind of all intact. Those are important to us, but we are looking at something very different as well.
We're looking at taking that concept and going much, much deeper, to where we are interactive with each other. We're not just consuming; we are participating. And so, if one person has a challenge, we can get together and discuss it, not just typing it out, but literally be face to face on a Zoom or a Teams call, whatever we end up going with. But whatever that looks like, we'll get together. We'll actually talk about it. In fact, my vision is to do that every week, to have something where we can just get together, and whether I'm running that as a coaching call or we just have a community call, we'll see what ends up happening. But that connection with people, it goes further than just, getting through a crisis. Gosh, how many times in the last few years, Jeff, have you and I been, frustrated with everything going on? We're just venting to each other. We're just encouraging each other all along. We just we build each other up, right?
Yep.
So that's what I want for more people. I want more people to have access to that, because you know what? Especially in a world where everything's moving so fast, what gets left behind is relationships, and that's unfortunate. Especially after COVID. I mean, that really messed with people's concepts of what relationships should be. And the funny thing is, we've been doing virtual relationship kind of things for a long time before any of that. But for some reason, it's just like it got forgotten about. Like that draw towards being part of something bigger than yourself got kind of forgotten about. And it's kind of tragic to see. I mean, this is across the board. I mean, you'd think that participation would have gone up in a lot of these communities. It actually went down, which is really, really, really sad.
Yeah.
But that's what we're dealing with, right?
Yep, absolutely. It is. I think no matter what a lot of business leaders are starting to say, return to office stuff, whatever it may be, the dynamics have changed.
Exactly.
And I am a true believer that they will not be going back to the old status quo. It's, there's going to be a middle ground. We're going to reach a middle ground. But I think the idea of everybody in the office all the time, unless there is a reason for them, an actual, you can't do your job without physically being here. Eventually it's going to end up some sort of hybrid. And I don't even like using that word, because it's now got some bad connotations between it. But I really think it's going to end up that, it's going to be a mix of various working methods.
Yeah, I think, and adapting to that is one thing, but I think and this kind of feeds into what I was wanting to talk about today, is what's being missed is a couple things. One, how to deal with and work with people. Those kind of skill sets are not really being taught in a context that IT people tend to know about. There's this, it's almost like, let's go and we'll figure it out later kind of thing. But the problem is there's expectations that are there that are not really agreed to. And so you have these, management might have these expectations, team leaders, other people on your team might have all these expectations of how to interact, but it's not being brought up. It's not being said, okay, well, here's our standards for doing a meeting. That it's not brought up. When you're in person, there are little cues that you can take, just body language, things like that you can, if you're just on a call and everybody's not on video, which is becoming very common, and it's one of those things where it's like, I get it. People are forced to do this in their bedrooms or whatever, and they don't want to show their bedroom. Yeah, I get it. But the problem is, what the dynamic is causing here is that people aren't picking up on cues that they normally would have if they're around a conference table. And so if these teams aren't being educated on that, if they're not reminding each other of these kind of things and doing things that are kind of part of their tribe to kind of signal Oh yeah. So I need to work on this, and whatever. You can say things like that. But if you say something like, okay, so I need somebody's attention here because what I'm going to do is tell you about this and that sort of thing. A little like quick little cues, things like that most people are not really able to do, and it really depends on your culture, of course. But the difference is whether people are willing to do that or not. And if you just a lot of people, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but there's been a lot of a sense of entitlement that has come out of a lot of this work from home stuff, and you have to know that you are probably more replaceable than you think. Just your tech skills alone aren't really going to carry you as far as you think. They might for a while, but if you are just horrible to work with, guess what? Somebody is going to replace you eventually. And so it's like it becomes that kind of thing where part of your job becomes learning how to be good to work with.
And that's hard. I think that's hard for a lot of us in tech. I know it was for me.
Sure.
And it took me a long time.
And I
get to one, understand
mm-hmm.
that I had that problem, and then two, how do you go about correcting it? And I didn't have the lessons. I didn't have somebody walk me through a lot of it.
Right.
Eventually I did, but when you start realizing be a little more friendly to the people I'm serving, how do you go about doing that? Because you still have in your head, the problem is always between the chair and the keyboard. I'm going to treat.
Yeah. And it comes to like one of the things we've been talking about a lot is how do you know what the challenges are if you're not willing to go discover it, and that's been the other thing that I've seen a lot of as of late is kind of an unwillingness to discover what challenges are. And in a lot of areas of IT, this is, not unusual, I guess. If you are in a position where you are creating a software or doing something along that line, if that's what your IT work essentially is, you may not be in a situation where you are put in front of a specific need and need to understand what that looks like to go forward. And that's okay. But you do need to have the acumen to pick up on cues when things aren't going right. And so that is something that you need to be practiced in. And so that's something where if you're not having the mindset of my tech skills aren't enough, and it's hard to do. Yeah. And it's funny. I was telling my wife this morning, I was like, I'm trying to think of what I would say to myself 20 years ago. What would I say to myself? And I struggle with this. I struggle to know what that would look like. But I will say that what I know that I did back then, and I would probably still recommend today, is I found mentors. I found people that were doing this. I reached out to them. They didn't reach out to me. They didn't know who I was. I mean, especially at the time. I mean, I was at a company like 20 years ago. I was at a company where I was the only person that knew anything about most technologies. The other two people were the owner's brother, and a guy that really just wanted to build PCs all day. He didn't want to do other things. And so that was the reality. And so for me to get beyond that, I knew I had to reach out to people. So I eventually found some people that were doing this in a I think it was a VMware user group early on, kind of when that was just starting to emerge, and Citrix user groups kind of had formulated in pockets. It wasn't official yet, and things like that, to where I could actually have conversations with people that were in the technology field and to kind of learn more about the way they operated and things like that. And eventually that came into something bigger. But honestly, I struggle with, like, how would I have just me of the future approaching myself and going, dude, you need to learn this, here, read this book, it's like, it's tough, right?
Because it's one thing to be told, it's another, but you have to convince, get through that. You really need to take advantage of this.
And this is where I know it's a struggle for what we're offering this week. It's a struggle for people to understand they need this. But trust me, you need this. It's just like hard to just say, trust me, you need this. But honestly, if I can, we've demonstrated time and again on a lot of these programs is that going it alone is a recipe for just, always getting what you've always gotten, but if you're part of a group that's building you up, I've watched, it's a funny thing is nobody talks about this, but I've watched this happen in some of the communities that with the people that have gotten more involved. We even had some of them on the show. I think of like Benjamin Krill, for example. He was just kind of in a stuck place. He wasn't really happy. And then he started, doing more with the Citrix user community and this sort of thing. And then we ended up talking and I did some coaching with him. And the next thing you know, he's like, well, why don't I ask for that? Yeah, why don't I see if I can just literally have them create a job position for me? And then that happened. And then things just kept happening and just kept rolling in his career where now he's, much further along than he ever thought he would be. Now, is there some magic pill? Is there some big little thing with that? Not necessarily. It really is dependent on person to person, but it really does become one of those things where it's just like, if you don't take those steps forward, then you're never going to know. You're just kind of going to end up with that kind of what we talked about on, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday, like that kind of your career becomes a war of attrition where you're just waiting for things to happen.
Yeah. It really is a mindset of you have to be able, you want to open yourself up and learn to change or at least hear what others say. And I think in tech that can be difficult for us to do.
Yeah. And there's certain things that I need to remember where this was in the book. There was a place in the book where I talked about something that, as far as talking about professionalism, I need to find this because it's just so hilarious because I recently asked somebody on LinkedIn, just a private message kind of a thing, about, and we're like I said, we're trying to evolve these offerings. And the reason we're offering it this week the way we are is because honestly, I think down the road, this will not be something we're pushing a lot for individuals to join up with. It'll be something, at least parts of it will be offered, maybe like the membership and whatnot, the VIP kind of backstage kind of concept. But as far as the full coaching and all that kind of stuff, that's really something we're going to be approaching companies with and doing that. And so I asked him, okay, what kind of things are you challenged with? What kind of challenges do you have with, especially new staff and things like that? And his response was hilarious, but it was actually kind of true. And it was, getting them to wear clean clothes when they show up. As far as like just having any degree of professionalism, time management.
Can you define like what the job area was? It?
Yeah, it's in tech in
okay.
In EUC. Is what this would be a function of. And in fact, I get the impression that some of these people might even be customer facing. So it's not just people that are working in a cubicle. This works both ways. And looking professional and being professional are often different things. And so I have encountered this a lot where someone will be in a polo shirt or even sometimes a full on like dress shirt, and they just stink. They just smell. And that is easily avoidable, just deodorant or a shower. The little things make a big difference. Now, I know that during the whole time of working from home, it was not necessarily always a thing. But if you are going to an office, and especially if you're going in front of customers, then it's super important for you to not just look the part. Obviously, if Jeff and I were going in front of customers today, like as a professional consultant, we wouldn't be dressed like this. We're in our homes. We're working from home today. but I'm clean. I'm showered.
But even then, working from home, if you're going to meet, if I'm meeting with a customer, I'm not wearing a t-shirt,
Right.
minimally a polo, those types of things. You have to be able to understand when it's appropriate, when it isn't.
Right. I'm trying to be relatable today. I'm trying to be, that rebel guy. But, showing off my personality.
Got the hair for it, baby.
Right. That's right. So basically, I always think about my friend Dan Allen, who worked with Citrix for a long time. But he's one of those that would show up to events or even sometimes to customers with a signature. He just had like that one shirt that he always wore, as an AC/DC shirt. And so he might put on like a sport coat with it to go to an event, but he just always seemed to have like that AC/DC shirt. It's like his signature. Now, is he less professional? No, he wasn't. Did he smell bad? No, I never encountered him to be smelling bad in any kind of scenario. It's just little things. It's like you don't have to be like the full on like dress clothes, like press, all that kind of appearance based stuff. Doesn't matter near as much as how much you care about yourself and those around you. So it's a big deal. Yeah.
There's nothing worse
even
than
just on a video. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's nothing worse than having to sit by somebody. It stinks.
Yeah. Read the room.
Yeah.
Another thing. And
or even I would say, one of my early jobs at a hospital here in Grand Rapids, we had a lady, very smart, very intelligent, but she wore a lot of perfume. A lot. And it smelled nice, but it would fill up the office area.
Overpower. Yeah.
It would overpower everything. So, you have to be conscious of those types of things. The same could be said for men. If you're going to put on cologne or whatever, you need to be aware.
It's true. And I think a lot of us come from all varied backgrounds, really. We're never all like, 100% the same people. But there's a certain level of, I guess you could say, conformity that actually does matter. And really it is like, a lot of it is the read the room thing. And, just be aware. I have a friend that you mentioned the perfume thing. She's been in environments where she's had to actually exit a room because of somebody's perfume. And so a lot of companies know of people like that. They want to be a welcoming place. So they make it like a rule that you have to have a neutral odor about you. You can't stink and you can't wear too much perfume. So the encouragement is to not wear any. Just don't stink. Just that is simple. And yeah, we all know those guys. I'll just say it. That like walk into a wall of Axe body spray and then go out into the world.
Because they think that's all they need to do.
Yeah, and it's just like, people will love me. Yeah, well, the thing is, no. And if they do, they're not the kind of people that you want in your life. Keep coming back to this video. It's not been really popular, and it's really sad to me. But it's really one of those things where people need to realize this, is that you are not so good at what you do, and you're not so tough that you are above the influence of others around you. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. And so if you're in a work culture that's toxic, for example, you're more likely to be toxic, and you need to be aware of that, and you need to be taking steps around that. Now, if you're part of a friend group or whatever that is basically toxic, you need to be aware of that, and you need to be thinking, okay, how's this going to affect my professional life, and what is important to me? Is it important for me to be a consummate professional that is going to be dancing in their career, or am I just going to survive this? Make your decision. They're both valid. I have nothing against people that really just want to stay in a systems administration role, and they're happy with that, and that's what they want to do. Great. As long as that's your decision, as long as that's what you've decided is for you. Now, and the funny thing is, I know Jeff's gonna relate to this, but I would not say that I'm fully connected with what I want to be when I grow up. I'm still discovering it. But I know that I don't want to stay in certain roles. I don't want to be. I've just not been happy in certain things, and for me to just force myself to stay there would be a disservice to humanity. It's just not. It's not right. And so now if I would have stayed where I was with the friend groups that I had and all that kind of stuff, friends that were really just like, oh, the world sucks, and you just got to take what you can, and that's all you're ever going to get, blah de blah. Hey, that's what it would have been, right? And I would have stayed there. But I broke free from that group of people and realized, oh, there's more I can do for my life, and that's why I'm doing this today.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you got to. We talk about sometimes oh, people are being. I don't want to use the word selfish, but they're more concerned about themselves than about other people. But in the end, it's we have to. We all have to lift each other. We all have to be supportive.
Yeah, and it's tough to do. So, really quick, I should talk a little bit more about some of the other things that are in this bundle, just because we're already in this space. But there's other things you can do to increase your professionalism. And when we did a survey about, actually, I had an ongoing survey for a while there for anybody who was signing up for the bonuses for my Citrix Hero program. And I was asking some key questions, and I wanted to understand, okay, where are people at and where are they going? And the vast majority of people that were responding to that were either systems engineers or systems administrators. But where they wanted to be was more of an architect or consulting role, which was encouraging to me. I was like, oh, well, hey, that's something that I have done a whole lot of in my life. And I can probably teach you how to do that from both a technical standpoint and from a, here's the hidden things you need to know. Here's the lessons that took me, 10 plus years to figure out, and I can just get them to you now. I can accelerate that rapidly. But a lot of them really, granted, I had a lot of responses that were just kind of like, obviously they're drifting through their career. They didn't know what to do. I also had a lot of messages that were, responses that were like, yeah, I don't feel like I can change any of this. This is just, I don't want to learn new things. And it's an honest thing, right? We don't want to learn new things. But here's the key is there's a couple of things that I've known that were difference makers in my career. And I can track these. I can track these by, the amount of happiness I had, the amount of, time I was not on call anymore. And the amount of money that I was making. These are things that I can actually track, right? Those are kind of those things you can see evolutions of. And one was really figuring out how to grasp what people were needing. So if I was out in the field and doing a design for people, I wasn't just giving them just specifications of here's what the software needs and here's the order in which you deploy it, and here we go. They could have read that from a web page, and gotten the same information. No, I was there to actually help them tailor this to their specific needs and make sure it was the best possible performing solution for them, so they could get their money out of it, right? But also to make sure it was meeting their business goals. Once I finally understood that and understood how to actually put that into action and make that a real thing, that was really a huge key for my career. That's actually where I started seeing that I was being put in front of more and more customers to do those kind of things. And a lot of times they were, the assessment phase. That's actually where I really saw the acceleration, is once I kind of got the formula, I guess you could say. That was something. And so what I've done is I've actually put the key lessons that I learned out of that, how to actually take a non-data set. It's you're basically creating this out of thin air. You're basically going and saying to users, show me your day. What does success look like for you? What kind of things are in your way? all of these kind of things that are present there, right? And then taking that towards your business goals and saying, okay, for this to meet with this, we have to do this. And then you say, here's the risks that I see here. Here's the things, that actions we need to take. And so it's not even necessarily like the full design process. It's more of just a report of what's there and the reason why things are important. Once I got that was what management wants. Management says they want the system to run. That's what they say. That's what their result they say is. Because management isn't always as smart about this stuff. And if they are, they don't always show it. So sometimes you have to be the one that shows them the story first. And the clients that I've had over my lifetime that have not been willing to meet with me on, let's all get together and understand what the process is, what the challenges are, what success looks like, and agree on this before we continue. The clients that have not been willing to do that, ultimately we're not successful. And so if I can be the one just suggesting that, just taking hey, let's take, 20 hours out of our process and actually do this. The clients that have done that have been massively successful, and therefore I was massively successful. So that's what I teach in the confidence in assessment, presentation, and documentation course. That course is about to get a huge upgrade. And so that's why I'm letting people in now as a personal purchase, because what's going to happen with that, as you can kind of tell, that's something that really does have more appeal to companies to make sure that their people are educated with. So that is what's going to be happening there. I'm going to be shifting that towards that model. And we tried back and forth to figure out a way to do that where it could be like a one price for people that are just going through this on a personal basis, and customers to go through this as a, kind of a either a subscription or a licensed basis. And trying to do both just didn't make any sense. And so ultimately, it's not had a lot of people that have bought into that. And so we're going to be taking that off of the personal offerings and doing this pretty much exclusively for companies for the majority of what we're doing. So it's one of those things where it's like, we have another course like that I did as a workshop that kind of expands on that even more and teaches you how to formulate an entire written design document, for example, or an assessment document, and teaches you how to use the layer systems that I talk about in the book to actually do all that. And so that's another piece of material that's part of this bundle. And again, it's something that you may not realize you need it until that moment where you're like, oh, yeah, they're asking me for something I don't know how to do. That does happen.
Well, and I think part of it too is you may not realize how important it actually is.
Right.
I think it's our friend Steve Greenberg with what he does. He insists with companies that he works for that he and his staff interview end users, the whole 9 yards. And a lot of times he'll get a lot of pushback on, we don't need you to do that. We understand. And I know he's mentioned a few times that, we will give this away. We will do this for free and we will come back to you. And the information that is brought back is incredible. It has impressed every one of those doubters that there was stuff going on, because it's an easy assumption. Well, the software does this, and this, therefore the users are doing this, and this. Well, there's a reason that there is a shadow IT out there, whether you understand that or not. What the users do as a process may not be what you are expecting them to do as a process.
Workaround. Yes.
Yeah. Or, you know what? It's easier if I just communicate directly with, John or Jane down the hallway. We share a spreadsheet that does that. And then, whatever it is. And you don't know that. And therefore you can't take that into account, and your project is much more likely to fail.
Yep. And actually, I don't know this for a fact, and so I'll just say this, but I do see evidence very, very strong evidence that a certain Las Vegas hotel chain and resort and casino basically had a hack that was started because of one of these kind of, unknown kind of, workaround kind of things, where someone got access to an account by basically impersonating someone, and the interrogation process apparently wasn't good enough. And so somebody was going around their procedures. Well, that's what shadow IT is. And that's what shadow IT basically is, in my mind, one of the most risky things out there, because you have people that are making workarounds that you don't know about. And a lot of times they have these security implications. And if you don't get out there and know about it, then you're not going to. So relying on a third party to do that, which is like what we're talking about with like Steve and his company and Thin Client and all that kind of stuff, that they do that as a third party, and they're good at it. And that's why, I've done work with Steve actually, so I know we're good at it. I can say we, it's like I'm part of that whole culture, I guess you could say, or the people that have contributed. So, and I wouldn't if he didn't have that level of professionalism, frankly. But internally with companies, that's where people don't realize that they should be doing that and can be doing that. I remember the first time I did that as a systems architect at a company. This is almost 10 years ago. Actually, wow, yeah, it was 2013, so it was 10 years ago. And I got the same kind of pushback, like, why are you spending all this time doing this? What are you doing? Just work on the systems, just make that better. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing, is I'm making them better. And so it was one of those things where I had to kind of justify myself a little bit to them, which was tragic, but I had to make that clear. It's just like, I can't make this better until I understand what it is. And that's another reason why I put this all out. And things I'm hoping to do is figure out a way to make this more portable for people, so that they can say, look, this, just do it now, do whatever you want, ops kind of thing is not working. Here is, just like a printout of the methodology kind of thing. I need to just figure out how to do this to make it that simple, to say, this is the process we need to follow if we're going to be successful. And you can do that within our organization. You can be that person who leads kind of from the shoulders. Instead, you don't have to be out front to be a leader. You can lead from within. That's really important for people to know. And that having that kind of education and acumen is important. Even if you haven't learned it by experience, it doesn't matter. The vast majority of the people we've talked to on Thrivecast didn't learn from figuring it out. They learned, or experience, they learned from others being with them and bringing them to the right place. Vast majority of them were like that. So it's kind of one of
that and taking the initiative to figure it out. And it's which is a much longer process than having the help of a good mentor, some good relationship with somebody that can help you step through.
True. And honestly, what I really want to do here is I want to have a format where you don't most of the things that I've done so far, I've been kind of working my way back, or backwards, if you will. So I've started with people that are just wanting to be architects, like the surveys was saying. But what I'm doing now is I'm working my way towards people that are just starting out in their IT careers. I'm hearing so much feedback. This one I talked about earlier is not the only one. There's a group that I'm starting to work with in the Memphis area, that they really want to help those that are underserved, kind of in the margins, minorities, things like that. And they want to use, even like to the point of like having some community-based programs, government programs, things like that are kind of in the quiver, I guess you could say, but they need material. And I'm like, well, great. If I could teach people this methodology from the very get-go, that's what that would look like. And so that really is at a core, and Jeff and I have had conversations about this for the last 3 years, about how a kind of that membership concept works, where you're guided along a path. You're not going to get that from joining a Slack channel. That's not good enough. you need somebody who's actually going to be there to guide you from just starting out in the service desk all the way to wherever you want to go in your career. You need those points of guidance, and that's exactly what we're doing with this launching of this program is building that for you and giving you not only the materials to know, but the relationships you need to be able to thrive in those environments. So that's really to explain. I know there's a lot of people that we know that have been kind of our core audience, I guess you could say, that are more in that like end user computing area. And really, this is us reaching out even further, because I didn't start in end user computing. I started like deploying Active Directory from Novell and from like doing, like I said, Exchange migrations and things like that. That was my, foray into things. And before that, I mean, obviously it was more than just like, playing Diablo, but, for a while there in my career, that was the extent of what I actually did on a computer. A lot of stuff was actually, more of just like kind of me just doing the grunt work. I was just going around the country deploying these credit card systems for Kinko's. That wasn't IT work, but it was still like I needed to know enough to be successful in installing the software to the computer and imaging and all that kind of stuff. So I guess it's kind of like IT, but it really wasn't like that involved. But that's kind of like I grew my path from there. So that's kind of who I want. I want to reach me 23 years ago. that's really kind of my heart.
In college, I was going to be an accountant. I mean, through high school into college, weirdly enough, I don't think it even happens anymore, but there would be a competition at the junior college that we have downtown. And one of them was in accounting. And I was in that for 3 years, the 3 years of my high school life. Came close to winning it, but never came out on top. But, I was going to be an accountant. That was my path forward. And I ended up in IT, of all things. Which you reach back far enough, that's actually a very common path for whatever reason. You talk to a lot of us older folk, and then a lot of them, when LANs first started forming and PCs, they came out of the accounting department for whatever reason. Yeah. But in the end, and it doesn't matter when you start during, these things. I've said this about DJ's book, that Just Do This, is that if I wish I would have had this book 20 years ago, because I wouldn't have had to go through all the pain that I have, but to learn these lessons, and they are critical lessons. And the hardest part is understanding that these are lessons that everybody can take advantage of. Whether it's IT or not, but especially in IT, the communication skills are absolutely critical. The organizational skills. These are things that I think in IT, even still today, we don't necessarily excel at. And they are things that can complete, whether you're a consultant, an architect, or working the IT department of a company, being able to communicate clearly, succinctly will just, your career will explode and take off. It really will.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and it's natural. I mean, I remember kind of early on in my career, watching people that had less skill sets than me, technically, being promoted. And as I've been out in the field, this is something I hear all the time. Man, so-and-so doesn't know anything about this. Why is he now my manager? It's like, well, because so-and-so focused more on the soft skills, the development stuff to become a manager, because that's what they wanted to do. And they use this as a mechanism to do that. That's why they're now your manager. It has nothing to do with what they know or don't know technically. And once you realize that, if that's their path, that's what they wanted, that's perfectly valid. In fact, my friend who is making the suggestions about kind of the basic needs of tech people to, not stink and wear clean clothes and, all these kind of basic things. I happen to know that he's shocked by this because him and I have been in professional situations for a long time now, and we're at a certain level where it's just like you now all of a sudden getting into managing people, and that element of things is a new journey. And it's like, what? How do you not know this? It's like one of those kind of things is like, and do I need to have someone else tell you so that you actually believe them, that sort of thing? And so that's a big piece of that. But that level of professionalism, for those of you that missed it, I talk about this in much more detail in the video from Tuesday when I talk about career paths. And that's where that comes out of, is realizing that, there's not a static path. It's not, you go from service desk to administrator to engineer to architect. It's not that static. It can be, but only if your passions are aligning with that. There's other things you can do, other pathways you can take. And, it really does come down to what kind of skills outside of the technology have you learned to make that happen. And so that's kind of why I'm doing these like workshops, for example. They really are just point solutions, like one pain point. Like the first one I did was on documentation, because it's like, well, geez, that's a pain point that a lot of people have, right? They don't know what to do. Just like you were saying, Jeff, they don't know what good documentation should look like. That was the feedback I got, a lot of that from the people that were in that course. They were blown away because they were like, yeah, I didn't realize that this should look like this. And they looked at my template, which is not, actually, I shouldn't say my template. They looked at the template that I have been giving people. I didn't develop it 100%. I just kind of tweaked it a little bit to have just that little bit of thrive in it. But honestly, once I explained the process and the why behind it all, they were blown away by the fact that they could do this. And it's just like, it becomes achievable. It's like, well, gosh, now all of a sudden I can do something that an architect is, or like even like a consultant is coming in and charging like, $300, $400 an hour. I can do that today, and I can practice right here where I am, and I can build that value and build that experience, and then I'll be able to go out and do, billing myself for $300.
And I think that's a big key, is that the skills that are being taught are skills that are going to help you across the board. These are skills that will help in whatever field you want to go into, whatever job you want to end up doing. These are going to help you in especially in the tech world, but even outside of tech.
That's a good point. I don't talk about that very much, but it is amazing how often that, like, just knowing how to phrase things, knowing how to just interpret an email chain, all these kind of things, they help you outside of that. In fact, one of the things that Jeff and I have been kind of working on in the background here is how to apply the same methodology to processes like sales, and how to say, okay, here's how this fits in. Here's how to understand, plan, change, and maintain, even in a sales process. It works in development, although most development people do other methodologies, but the same process. It's a natural process, and so these are things that actually work. So if you know how the nuances within each of those work, then there's more growth. In fact, that's why last month I did a workshop on how to avoid risks. I call it, no more resume generating opportunities. In other words, how to not be fired for doing IT work. You can have the best intentions, but it's like all the time, it's like the most famous thing. And Jeff and I started with, actually, I think this is how Thrivecast started. We started with a story about doing something wrong and owning up to it. Yep. And that something wrong was, creating massive outages, and we've all done it. So it's a lesson on, well, what did I learn from that? But also, this actually, most of this comes from a book that I read in 2004 or 2005, something like that. And I got that whole like methodology of how to do a deployment of something that's very involved, like a Citrix deployment in that time. And so it was very important for me to have that knowledge, even though it had nothing to do with technology. It was how to actually do a project. And what I found out in the field almost immediately was that I knew how to do this more than most project managers. And so I was guiding a lot of project managers and coordinators on how to do this properly and how to understand that whole process, because they had no clue. To them, it was just like, who's doing that, what, and directing, herding cats kind of thing. But if I told them how and when and why, then all of a sudden they were able to plug that into their processes. And sometimes they can get overwhelming. I mean, the sheer number of requests that I've had to, can you get me a project file? This is great. Can you give me a project file? I was like, can you create your own? Can you learn from me and just create your own, please? I don't want to do this for you.
No, we don't have a license for project. I want you to create.
That was my answer for a lot of it. Even when it wasn't true, I was like, I don't know if I can use my license for that or whatever. Yeah, I would make up excuses, but ultimately, what I'd usually say is like, you know what? Learn from me. I learned how to say learn from me. But that was a big thing. So that's what that workshop's all about. I haven't actually decided on the date and topic for the next workshop. I'll probably be doing that within the next few days here. But I think I'm going to go along the lines
of the decision, not the actual presentation, right? Okay.
Yeah. Making sure. I've committed to every month. And that's part of this whole package, is getting access to these, not only as replays, but I tend to edit the replays into like chunks. So it's like, if it's a 4-hour workshop, if you're attending it live or watching it the week after on YouTube before I pull it down, it's like, it's like a 3 to 4 hour event, right? It's just a big deal and you have to get it all at once, right? Well, I'm editing those down into smaller chunks that you can just do on your lunch break, that sort of thing, which is kind of one of the criteria I have for a lot of courses and whatnot that we do is that they have to be, put into achievable little chunks to move you forward. That's a big deal. So that's a big part of the process. And so I would say for that, learning how to learn is part of that too. Learning how to teach is part of that. And so that's what we've been learning. But that's why we want to bring people in on this too, is not only give them access to those, but also give us feedback. Like, what worked about this workshop, what didn't, that sort of thing. So I can just always iterate, make things better and better and better. And ideally what the vision is to start taking these same kind of lessons about what works and what things and going further and further into kind of those niche areas. Like we've talked about doing things for sales engineers to help their processes. I am really wanting to get into, like I mentioned, with project managers, that sort of thing, training them on how to understand these kind of things and how to work within these processes. And in some cases, literally teaching project managers how IT works or should, the little things like that. So it becomes one of those things where it's like, the better we get at training the people like us, the better we get at training those that are not in our same roles. And we kind of expand this out from there. And what that means for you, dear listener, is that you will be able to grow along with that. So let's say, for example, you are in a systems engineering role, and you find there's these guys that come and talk to you every now and then from a company, and you realize that what they do is they basically go from company to company and talk about their technology, and that's what they do. And they ask your needs, and they kind of say, this could work for that. Let's maybe do a proof of concept on that. Well, these people are called sales engineers, and a lot of us have a pathway that leads to that, but we've never had any guidance on how to do that. And so that is something that we want to develop. We want to have that course where we can say we can develop people from within our group to have a career in that if that's what they're passionate about.
And also to give you an idea of what it's like to be a sales engineer, because
exactly,
you are only seeing one part of it when they come in.
Right. So the possibilities are huge. But as you can imagine, this is not something that would be, a lot of this stuff we can kind of give bite-sized pieces away for free. But ultimately, that all takes production work and it takes time. I tell people all the time, it's like the Just Do This book. Put a lot into it. A lot. Not just the time. I mean, the time is like, actually, I did figure out recently at my standard billable rate, how much time I put into the book, what the book actual cost was. Yeah.
Don't do that.
So welcome to a $60,000 project right here. This is $60,000. That's what this took. If you take that time into account and put a billable rate to it, $60,000. Just
why we call it a labor of love.
It is. It is. Now, production costs, it's not free, right? It's like I had to pay somebody to design the cover. I pay an editor. I self-publish, but still, that means a lot of that money doesn't come to me. When you buy a book, I get a portion of it, which is basically a royalty minus the cost of printing. Which, spoiler alert, in the case of the hardcover, these cost about $17 a piece to print. And so, that's just the way this works. And they're printed on demand is a big piece of that expense. But it's like, fortunately, that's the world we're living in, where this is a possibility. But it's not something I can just give away for free and sustain, right? I have to have a point where I'm charging for stuff. But also, we've found in our lives that the people that pay attention. So that's why we're doing this. We're making it so that you have a mechanism to make a single investment that will be a lifetime of stuff. And when I say a lifetime, I mean how long we do this, you'll have access because you're a founding member, and that's what we're doing for these founding members. These few that decide to take the risk and build this with us. That's what you're going to get. And so so that's the analogy. So that's what we invite you to do. We invite you to invest in this. There's more. There's a lot more, actually. If you go to thrive-it.com/4DFC23, you'll see that there's a lot more there. In fact, let me put this graphic back on the screen here. That basically we have about a little over $6,000 worth of value there. So that means that's a 92% discount that you're getting. But also you're getting things that normally would have a monthly charge associated with them. But you're getting a buy-in that bypasses all that. So you pay one time $4.99 and you don't have to do any monthly things like everyone else is going to have to do. So that's what this offer is at its core. It's that ability to be the first and kind of be those people that are funding all of the stuff that we're doing. Right now this is all out of pocket, which is not always good. You can't get good quality out of that, and so you have to have a product that actually is supported by people. And so, like we mentioned earlier, this is something that we're going to be now focusing on offering this to companies for their employees going forward. And so this is kind of that last chance for you to be part of this at this kind of a rate, at this kind of a discount, because we're going to have to change our systems to accommodate that. And really, with a couple of exceptions, one being the backstage membership, that'll be one of the few things that you'll be able to get access to as an individual going forward. And so we really want you to get in now while we can. So that's what I encourage you to do is to grab that, take action, don't wait. Let's build our careers together.
Call now.
Call
Lines
now.
are open.
Oh, wait, there's more. Actually, use that in a presentation about this. On the website, you'll get a copy. You'll see a copy of that, the replay of that. And I walk through all this. If you have questions and like that, view that video. Take the. I think it's actually about 40 minutes long. I go through in huge amount of detail everything that I'm doing and why. So I encourage you to do that. So we're gonna end this.
And I think real quick, I just want to say, and becoming a founding, and I know a lot of times this is said, but this is so absolutely true, is that your feedback. We don't know everything. We don't know how everybody learns. There may be a certain learning scheme that we're not aware of that you are, and that's the way you learn, and we want to know about that so that we can help with other people that are that learn that way, or whatever the case may be. So you will have a direct influence on the product itself and how it works and how it's delivered.
That's right, because we follow our own methodology. We want to understand first, and that's a big piece of this. In fact, in the coming weeks, you'll start seeing some surveys from us, because we're going back to that process now that we've, established the framework of this. We're going to be going back to the understand phase and actually surveying people and getting more information about their challenges and things like that to go forward. But the people that we're going to be asking first, and the people that have the loudest voice, are our founding members. So yeah. Cool. Well, it was good to be with you all today. I know most people are going to be viewing this in the replay, so I want to acknowledge you as well. But it's been great to be with you. And then, we'll do this again one more time tomorrow. Last chance tomorrow.
Great being back on the air with you, DJ.
I know, it's crazy.
A lot more.
Yeah. It's always a good experience. So great time. And again, if you need anything from us, just feel free to email me. It's dj@thrive-it.com, or just support@thrive-it.com, and we'll get you taken care of. But yeah, do it.
Always reach out for free.
Do it now. Yeah. All right, everybody.
Hans and Franz that do it now, but don't do it. But yeah,
classic stuff.
I think we just dated ourselves with that one.
Well, we do that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, as DJ was saying.
Yeah, we will be back again tomorrow. I'll be doing another office hours, same bat channel, same bat time, same bat channel. Yeah, awesome. We will see you all then. Have a great